Have you ever put a comment in somebody's video without actually checking whether what you're saying is coherent or even logically, rationally, scientifically, historically true? Most people are going to say, oh, of course. But the majority of people really don't. They just want their argument to be correct no matter what they put. And this, I come to a comment, actually a few comments that I received on my Deception of Dawa video from 2 days ago. I got comments that were so strange. Like, Jesus' name in Greek actually means hell Zeus. What? Could this be true?
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Let's take a look. So, there's many versions of this that are going around. Did you know Zeus, the name of Jesus, is actually hell Zeus? 500 years ago, the letter J never existed. Hell Zeus. Okay, that's... oh my goodness. There is a false teaching that tells people the name Jesus means hell Zeus because they sound similar. However, Greek words have a different connection. There's a difference between translation and transliteration, but I'm not going to get into that. The whole argument hinges on the sound of the suffix sus being similar to Zeus, and apparently also the Latin word for the Greek god's name, and the JE meaning hell. Therefore, Jesus means hell Zeus. The whole argument shows a total lack of even basic knowledge in ancient languages, which can be found from multiple sources online. Like the image, it breaks the Greek word for hell and Zeus. Actually, another blasphemous one that goes on with this, it goes further to say that JE/SUS is a compound word that means earth pig, because in Latin, sus meaning pig or swine, and JE means earth in Greek, which is just totally insane because you don't put words together using two different languages. But, I mean, that's just crazy. Let's get back to the actual first argument. Jesus isn't a compound word, which is two separate words that make up one single word. It comes from a single Greek word that I don't know how to say. Volk. And lastly, you can't prefix a Latin word with ancient Greek and say it has some sensible meaning. It's two different languages which don't mix like that. And then the most common comment that you get from atheists, you just know they're an atheist because of their comments. Well, if we didn't have religions, we'd have a peaceful world.
Stop it. Get some help.
Why is that? Because religions cause all of the wars. Do they? That's scary. Let's check it out. Before I go any further, I know a lot of people have asked about this because I've quoted it in a few videos, but you can find this by just Googling this title. It's in the Times of British. Ending religion is a bad idea, says Richard Dawkins. So anyone saying that it's going to be a peaceful world and all of these things, even your God delusion guy says otherwise.
Okay, so I have a friend who we can call Joe. Now, Joe says stuff, and Joe says a lot of stuff. Okay, to be straight up, Joe's pretty much a walking and talking meme. If you were to Google Joe's face right now, you'd probably see something that looks like this. This meme says, religion, the #1 cause of war. If you spend some time around someone like Joe, then you've probably heard this so much that you assume that it's gotta be true. But what do the facts say? The best known religious wars is probably the Crusades, and then after that, probably like the Muslim conquest, and then less known is probably like the 30 Years' War or some of the French religious wars and so on. So it's true, religion is certainly a cause of war, but is it the #1 cause of war? Let's check the stats. The best known document that I know of on this is called the Encyclopedia of Wars, and it's by Charles Phillips and Alan Axelrod. In the book, they document all the wars from 3500 BCE all the way to the year 2000. They document a total of 1,763 wars, and of which it's said that only 123 wars were caused by religion. In percentages, that's about 7% of wars that were caused by religion, and the other 93% of wars were secular. In addition, religious wars only account for less than 2% of all people killed in warfare, and that includes the 3 million from the Crusades and also the 3,000 or so from the Inquisition. So, fact #1. Religion is certainly a cause of war, but it's not the leading cause of war, and it's most definitely not the #1 cause of war. Okay, so now let's take a look at one more meme. So this meme says, the only solution to peace on earth, and there's an A. And for those that don't know what that A represents, that A represents atheism. As we saw earlier, religion can and does lead to violence, but would the world be a better place without religion? What can we learn from history? Boy, I'm glad you asked. Let's take a look. Roll it, Johnny. If we look at history, we can look at the communist Russian, Chinese, and Cambodian regimes of the 20th century, all of which completely rejected all organized religion and belief in God, and all of which were responsible for some of the worst atrocities that this world has ever seen. Estimates of the death tolls under these regimes range anywhere from 21 million all the way to 95 million, and that's without the influence of religion. Now, what these statistics aren't going to show are the simple acts of people using religion as a tool to demonize and hurt other people. But what these statistics also aren't going to show are the simple acts of kindness that are committed by religious people every day. And if we look to the top charities and the top hospitals in the world, a large chunk of them are religious organizations. This leads to fact #2. Atheism is not the only solution to peace on earth. In fact, the evidence seems to say quite the opposite. Now, one more point to consider. Let's say that the doctor told you that your husband needs to start eating more healthy, and you told your husband this, and instead of him stopping, he just continues to eat piles and piles of junk food. And one day, he falls asleep on the couch with Cheeto stains all over his mouth, and you take the Cheetos away from him while he's sleeping, and you replace it with broccoli. And he wakes up obviously ticked off and says, "What are you doing with my food? All food is healthy." And you respond by saying, "Well, that depends on what kind of food you're talking about. All foods are not created equal, and junk food is not healthy food." To say that food is good for you is just too simplistic of a claim. And likewise, to say that religion leads to violence is also too simplistic of a claim. All religions are not created equal. Would it be fair to take the Jainists, whose central teaching is respect for all living beings and nonviolence, and lump them together with the jihadists? For real, how often do you see Amish terrorists on America's Most Wanted? And that's fact 3. All religions are not created equal. So if you have a friend like Joe who walks and talks like a meme and he says that religion is the #1 cause of war, I want you to take this video and post it on their wall or email it to them right away. And then you can write, "Hey Joe, I thought you may find this interesting," no matter what their name is. Because if getting rid of religion won't make the world a better place, then stopping people from using these silly nonsensical claims would.
I am putting some humor in this, but let's be clear on this. This is a very serious topic, because if you are going to attack something, an institution, a building, anything, if you want to truly take it down, you must attack the foundation so it all falls away, just like a house of cards. If you want to get rid of buildings or something like that, you're not going to just hit it from the top and feel that everything's going to crumble down from there, because that doesn't happen in reality. You have to attack at the foundation, and the rest will crumble down. And Jesus Christ is the foundation of Christianity, of salvation, of everything. So when you begin to attack Jesus' name means hell Zeus, it's all these little, that's not little, it's the foundation. You know, people can say, oh, well, there's slavery in the Bible, or there's this, or there's that. And most of that just has to do with not understanding the translations of those words at the time, and just things that occurred at that time. And that's just petty. But of course, they use that, and that's their choice. But some of these things are foundational. Like trying to say that the New Testament was not written in Greek when it's so obviously it was. And to say that it's just blind faith, so all you have to do is get rid of this blind faith, and that's all you have to do, and it crumbles at the foundation. So atheism isn't the only one that attacks this. There is a Hebrews root movement that is doing the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and continue on with this, but I just wanted to put that out there. And then, of course, the favorite. This one actually Christians use a lot to defend their faith, which this is a teaching moment. Don't use this argument because it's silly. I know where you're going with it, but don't use it because that's the go-to for them, okay? And that is, religion is just based on faith. Is that true? Am I just blindly following some, what do they call, spaghetti monster in the sky? Spaghetti daddy? Yo, seriously, they use this word. Spaghetti daddy monster or something. That's what they call God. Whew, that doesn't seem logical at all, but I guess that's where they're going with it. Do we just blindly follow a man, an entity that they just made up? Is that what faith really is? Let's go to the sources.
Thanks, John. So here's what happened. So recently there was a debate between fellow apologist and friend of mine, Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy, against atheist Aaron Raw on the topic, is Christianity dangerous? To no surprise, Aaron gives and starts talking about his typical definition of faith.
Faith is a belief that is not based on evidence,
and is something he's said in other videos of his.
Faith is an assertion of unreasonable conviction assumed without reason and defended against all reason.
Now, despite the fact that Michael already corrects all of these mistakes in his opening speech,
and I can find no scholar that specializes in Koine Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches,
which we will get to later, Aaron sticks to his definition and brings this up again later on in the debate.
Believing things that are not evidently true, which is the basis of faith.
Now you have to keep in mind that Aaron prides himself on his intellectual integrity and how much research he's done, and he doesn't miss an opportunity to remind us that...
I've spent 20 years as an atheist activist. For the last 20 years. 20 years! Because after 20 years of research, so 20 years of...
And then even earlier in the debate, he said...
See, I can't believe something unless it is supported by evidence.
Right. So, given that Aaron is still using this definition, although Michael has corrected it, and given that Aaron can't believe something unless there's evidence for it, Michael rightly presses him on the question, asking for any evidence for why he continues to use this definition. So let's see what Aaron says.
Do you have any scholars that specialize in Koine Greek that say pistis means denying evidence or reason?
Scholars who say that say again?
Pistis, the Greek word we translate as faith, means denying evidence or reason.
And we have demonstrations of that.
Do we have any scholars that say this is how it's defined?
I have no idea if we have scholars
that
say that. I know that we have missionaries who say that is what it is.
Okay, are they experts?
I'm sorry?
Are they the experts, though?
I don't know.
Okay, how is the word pistis defined in Aristotle, Antiphon, Diodorus, Plato? Have you looked into that at all?
No, I haven't looked into how Aristotle
Okay,
interpreted
so
that.
then
No.
have you done a good analysis of what the word actually means in the New Testament then, if you don't actually look at the Greek word?
So now I'm beginning to wonder that how in 20 years of this intellectual research that he's done, how has he not understood the correct definition of what faith is, both historically and biblically? And Michael's not the first one to point it out.
And every Christian I've ever debated this with tells me that I'm misdefining faith.
Now, the title of the debate is Christianity Dangerous? But the thought I began to have in my mind was, if Arn is so adamant about this definition, yet he has been corrected on this many times, then perhaps it is his own research that is perhaps flawed, biased, and dangerous to the pursuit of truth. Hence the question I'm about to ask.
This question's for Arn. You mentioned that in 20 years of rigorous research, you found no evidence, I think you said, of Christianity. But
No, that's not what I said. I said in 20 years of arguing with Christians that they told me that I'm wrong about the belief in faith, that faith is not a belief that is not based on evidence. I say that faith is a belief that is not based on evidence. They all say, oh yeah, we have evidence. I say, okay, fine. What is it? And I've always specified that I'm looking for scientific evidence. They ask, what evidence would I accept? I said, how much evidence would you accept? They would ask. I said, I'll take anything that qualifies as evidence. Any body of objectively verifiable facts which positively indicate or exclusively concord with that particular position over any other. In 20 years,
I think I get
without
it.
exception,
Okay.
there has been no one to present any scientific evidence that actually indicates the Christian God, or indeed any God, or in fact anything supernatural at all.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, that doesn't change the question I'm about to ask.
So, you mentioned that in 20 years of rigorous research, you found no evidence of what you're looking for. But then when Michael pressed you on naming just one scholar who defines the word faith in the way you put it, you couldn't name one. So my question is, could it be possible that your research is maybe flawed, biased, and even maybe dangerous to the pursuit of truth?
I have conducted this experiment, as I explained, over and over and over and over again, having this exact conversation at least once a week for 20 years. Not one Christian ever has produced evidence. He didn't either, nor can you. No one can. It doesn't exist.
That's not the debate
demand
tonight.
that anybody in this room who calls yourself a Christian, if you think you have scientific evidence to indicate you're God, bring it. You ain't got it. I win.
I'm sorry my question upset you, but that wasn't my question, but I'll move on. Thank you.
So he apparently didn't like the question, apparently didn't like being pressed in that way, but notice he never answered my question. It was a simple question. He holds a position and is continually corrected on this position, and when I call him out on that, rather than address the actual question, he gets upset, gets very emotional, starts yelling, points at me and says I can't produce the very thing he's asking for, when in reality the thing I'm asking, because it's my question, is how is his alleged 20 years of rigorous research not flawed, biased, and dangerous to the pursuit of truth? So let's do a play-by-play and unpack this a little bit further.
As I explained, over and over and over and over again, having this exact conversation at least once a week for 20 years. Not one Christian ever has produced evidence. He didn't either, nor can you. No one can. It doesn't exist.
That's not the debate tonight.
So the first thing he does is change the subject and immediately dodge the question entirely.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a...
Question from Eric Hernandez.
What?
Because remember, my question was not, has anyone in 20 years presented any convincing evidence to you that Christianity is true, but rather, how is it that in your alleged 20 years of research, how is it that you can continue to misuse and misdefine the word faith despite being corrected on this numerous times? But again, dodging the question, he continues on his rant.
That anybody in this room who calls yourself a Christian, if you think you have scientific evidence to indicate you're God, bring it.
Now here is where it really becomes evident that his perspective and take on studying and doing research is very biased, flawed, and dangerous to the pursuit of truth. As an example, he asked for scientific evidence for God.
I win.
No, sir. You are wrong.
Now the problem here is that God, if he exists, would be a non-physical entity, and science, by definition, is a discipline which studies the physical world. So to say that there is no scientific evidence for God, and therefore he probably does not exist,
I can honestly say that I know there is no God.
would be the equivalent of saying, because my metal detector cannot detect plastic, therefore plastic does not exist. Science is a great and wonderful tool for discovering things about the physical world, but has absolutely nothing to say about the non-physical. So to use science to discover something non-physical or to investigate the supernatural would be like using a metal detector to try and detect plastic on the beach. It is simply the wrong tool for the assessment. So yes, his alleged pursuit of truth is clearly biased and flawed. After all, it's a simple question, and there was no need to change the subject or dodge the very question. He could have easily corrected me by simply answering the question, but he didn't, and I wonder why.
But if you can't pretend that things are true when you know they couldn't possibly be, and you say, as I do,
it doesn't exist! Bring it!
When defenders of the faith realize they have no valid or reasonable argument, they try to end discussion with an escape excuse.
It doesn't exist! I win!
But this gets even worse when we look back at the debate.
Now, Aaron has said that if he is presented with new data, he will change his mind.
Faith is a belief that is not based on evidence.
And trust me, Michael presents a lot. First, he goes to the original Greek word itself.
First, faith in the Bible is the Greek word pistis, and I can find no scholar that specializes in coining a Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches.
And goes through many Bible passages which uses a word and demonstrates its proper context. And he even goes as far as to survey the word and how it was used throughout history.
I looked up how the Greek word is used in Herodotus, Diodorus, Aristotle, Xenophon, Plato, and many other ancient Greek works. And it is never used to mean an act of denying evidence or rejecting reason.
So, is Aaron being honest? Is he seriously pursuing truth? Will he change his mind after being corrected here? No.
You can show me another definition that is more accurate. I'd be happy to adopt it, but after 20 years, nobody's been able to cough one up.
Really?
Dr. Leon Morris, in the Dictionary of Paul and His Letters, says faith is understood more or less as a response to revelation. It says faith means commitment or assurance, not blind belief.
So Aaron has no excuse to continue to use this misinformed, erroneous definition of the word faith. And even if he had not been corrected here in this debate tonight, let us not forget...
I've spent 20 years as an atheist activist for the last 20 years. 20 years. Because after 20 years of research... I must have heard this nonsense 100 times. So 20 years of...
Being in your career for this long, you have no excuse for not knowing this subject any better.
The truth may set you free, but first it might piss you off.
Bring it!
So, is Aaron Ra's research flawed and biased?
Well, I am not biased. And you can test that.
And is it dangerous to the pursuit of truth?
I say that faith is a belief that is not based on evidence.
And I can find no scholar that specializes in coining a Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches.
How does believing things that are not evidently true not dangerous?
All in all, Aaron has constantly assumed this definition.
Which means there's no reason to believe it at all. The first one who said this was me. And we know that nothing pisses him off more than when people don't believe in him.
It doesn't exist! Bring it!
How is that not dangerous?
Evidently so, based on his own words. Now, despite all this, I still think that the greatest irony and, quite frankly, embarrassment for him is that the very thing that he cannot stand, that he disdains, that he is fighting against, is the very thing that he seems to be demonstrating and portraying in his very own character, behavior, and even pursuit of truth through his research.
Christianity's greatest danger of deception is undeniable.
So Christianity is dangerous because it's allegedly deceptive.
Pretending to know things you don't know, dishonest though that is.
And pretending to know things that you don't know. Okay?
There's a definite danger to your ability to reason if you've been conditioned that you must believe man-made mythology of impossible absurdity and for no good reason, even when all the evidence says otherwise.
And I can find no scholar that specializes in coining a Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches.
What evidence? Oh, I don't know. I don't have any. Period. Done.
Christianity is dangerous in that it provides cover for idiocy, dishonesty, paranoid delusions, and serious psychiatric disorders.
No one can. It doesn't exist. Bring it.
Now, I could seriously go on and on about Aaron, how he's inconsistent and at times seemingly even disingenuous. But what has to take the cake is his very definition of faith.
I say that faith is a belief that is not based on evidence. Believing things that are not evidently true, which is the basis of faith.
Which means by his own standards and by his very own definition,
all religions, every one of them, right, cites facts that are not facts.
I have seen no data that this is what actually is taught within ancient Greek literature.
While pretending to know what they don't know.
Do we have any scholars that say this is how it's defined?
I don't know.
I can think of no one else that exemplifies this definition of faith but himself.
Faith really is pretending to know what you don't know.
Ironically, by his own standards, Aaron Ra is a man of faith.
Faith is the most dishonest position it is possible to have.
Indeed, a man of great faith.
So any belief that requires faith should be rejected for that reason.
And as he once said,
people of strong faith refuse to reason, reject reason, will not be reasoned with.
Sounds familiar.
It is never wise to believe anything claimed by another without question, without reservation, or without reason.
There's questions for Aaron.
Having no reason to believe something is a pretty good reason not to believe it.
But then when Michael pressed you on naming just one scholar who defines the word faith in the way you put it, you couldn't name one. So John, the next time you hear Aaron Ra say that faith is a belief without evidence, what are you going to say?
What do you mean?
And then, of course, we have this one that is just beyond any comprehension. But the thing is, this is how people think. This isn't just about religion. This is about politics. This is about whoever wants to win the argument, they will make up whatever. And people will easily believe it. They'll share it a million times before somebody says, hey, by the way, that's not correct. So you got to be careful. So let's take a look at this bizarro one. When this one first came out with Zeitgeist and all of these other things, people really believe this. I mean, this is important, y'all. I've heard of people actually leaving the faith because of these silly documentaries. You have to research this stuff. Jesus came from a pagan religion, pagan goddesses or gods and all of these things. Horus and Mithras and all of these people. And honestly, if I repeated how these people were born, one of them anyway, the video would be censored because it's so outlandish. But look it up yourself. Look up how Mithras was actually conceived, or Horus actually, but born July 30th, and none of these are true. And even, was it Bill Maher that put together Zeitgeist? He said, oh, well, I wasn't trying to, essentially be factual. That's essentially what he said. I don't know the exact quote, but he backed out of it and said, oh, well, that's not really what I meant. Because it was all illogical and not based on facts. But people so easily are swayed by memes and silly documentaries put on by people with an agenda. And this goes for everything, not just religion. When you armor yourself with truth, you have no fear of scrutiny. So I would never ask for these type of things to be taken down or whatever. But we need to teach our young teenagers and people that, may be easily swayed, these things to armor yourself with. And that way, whenever, like I said, when you stand with truth, you have nothing to fear. Scrutinize all you want. That's why we don't behead people for questioning the faith. So the entire premise of this video is research. Don't just blindly follow anything, whether that be a political leaning, something at work or school, or especially religion. do the research yourself. And when you stand with truth, you fear no scrutiny. You might not like it, you know, how people put out things, or you might question things, and that's fine. That's good. You're supposed to question things. That way, you go and look things up yourself and allow the word to speak to you rather than just trying to read it and say that you read it. Allow it to speak to you. So, and that goes for anybody. I mean, if you're going to attack Christianity, make sure you have all the documentation correct before you try to do that. Otherwise, you end up sounding foolish. Anyway, guys, y'all have a wonderful day. And next time you see a crazy meme that says something that just doesn't seem right, what are you gonna say? What do you mean? Y'all have a wonderful day. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'm gonna put a link to all the videos, all the channels that I used in my videos. I'm gonna put them in the description or in the pinned comments. Y'all go subscribe and look through their videos. They have great videos. And at the end of this, I'm going to have a playlist for their videos that I didn't make, somebody else made, just for people that, you know, may be questioning things and want to start digging somewhere with some evidence. Obviously, that's not the only place you should look, but it's just kind of a starter pack videos that I find that are very helpful. And go ahead and go to the playlist and save it to your playlist. And that way, you know, especially if you have teenagers, if you have a youth group, if you have whatever the case may be, grandchildren, whatever, you can send that, shoot that little list to people, and then they can start there too. And within each one of those videos, most of them have a website or something where you can go and print out resources and all kinds of amazing things. We have tons of evidence. I know there's many people that never feel the need to need evidence, and that's fine. But so many people do, especially in this day and age. And in my next video, I'm going to be talking about how science evolution was actually predicted, prophesized in the Bible. So, y'all have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.